The first 30 minutes that quietly shape your entire mind. Most people believe their mental health is shaped by big moments, major decisions, life-changing events, traumatic experiences. But neuroscience, psychology, and lived experience tell a very different story. Your mind is not shaped by dramatic moments. It is shaped quietly, every single morning, before emails arrive, before social media speaks to you, before the world places demands on your attention. The first minutes after waking are not neutral. They are formative. When the body wakes up, the brain is still highly impressionable. Neural activity is flexible. Stress systems are sensitive. Attention is easily directed. In this short window, the mind asks a silent question. Is today safe or threatening? Most people answer that question without realizing it. They reach for their phone. They flood the brain with information. They trigger urgency before awareness. They wake the nervous system into tension instead of clarity. And then they wonder why their mind feels anxious, scattered, or exhausted, even before the day truly begins. Mental health does not collapse suddenly. It erodes quietly. And mornings are where that erosion usually starts. A healthy mind is not built by motivation. It is built by predictable, gentle habits that teach the brain stability. This is not about discipline. This is not about productivity. This is not about becoming a better version of yourself. This is about creating a mind that feels safe to live in. Because a calm mind is not an accident. It is trained. Why mornings matter more than you think. When you wake up, your brain transitions out of sleep cycles where emotional memory is processed. This is why thoughts feel vivid. This is why anxiety feels louder in the morning. This is why your first input becomes your emotional baseline. If the first signal is pressure, the nervous system prepares for threat. If the first signal is calm, the nervous system stabilizes. Most people unknowingly train their brain to expect stress every morning. They wake up late. They rush. They consume alarming content. They check notifications before grounding themselves. This is not a personal failure. It is a cultural habit. But habits can be changed gently. A healthy morning does not require perfection. It requires intentional absence, absence of noise, absence of urgency, absence of unnecessary stimulation. Before adding anything, the healthy mind removes pressure. The biggest morning mistake, the most damaging morning habit is not laziness. It is immediate mental engagement. When the brain is forced to react instantly, messages, news, tasks, it never completes its emotional reset. This creates morning anxiety, racing thoughts, emotional fatigue, reduced focus, low mental resilience. Over time, the brain learns. Waking up equals stress. That belief becomes automatic. And automatic beliefs are powerful. The goal of a healthy morning is to rewrite that belief, to teach the brain, Waking up equals safety. This is where mental health quietly begins. A healthy mind does not start with doing it. Starts with being still before becoming active. Silence before stimulation. Awareness before information. Breath before thought. Healthy mornings are not busy. They are stable. They give the nervous system a chance to regulate before engaging the world. This is not spiritual language. This is biological reality. What this series will do. Over the next 7 segments, this series will gently rebuild the way mornings feel in your mind. Not with extreme routines. Not with unrealistic expectations. Not with toxic positivity, but with simple, repeatable habits that calm the brain, improve focus, and reduce emotional overload. Each habit is designed to reduce anxiety, improve mental clarity, strengthen emotional regulation, create inner stability, support long-term brain health. This is not about becoming more productive. It is about becoming more mentally safe. Because when the mind feels safe, everything else improves naturally. The promise of this journey. By the end of this series, mornings will no longer feel heavy. They will feel grounded. Thoughts will slow. Focus will sharpen. Emotions will stabilize. Not because life becomes easier, but because your mind becomes stronger. Quietly, gently, from the moment you wake up. What your brain learns the moment you wake up. When the alarm stops and your eyes open, something subtle but powerful happens inside your brain. Before you think a single conscious thought, your nervous system begins interpreting the world. It asks a question silently, without words. Is today safe? Or do I need to be on guard? Most people assume this question is answered by what happens during the day. Stress at work, arguments, deadlines, unexpected problems. But in reality, the brain answers this question before the day even starts. The answer is shaped in the first moments after waking. This is not philosophy. This is biology. During sleep, the brain processes emotional memory. It sorts experiences, reduces intensity, and resets emotional balance. When you wake up, that system is still active. This is why mornings often feel emotionally amplified. Small worries feel bigger. Thoughts feel louder. Anxiety feels closer to the surface. Your brain is still deciding how to organize the day emotionally. And whatever input it receives first becomes the template. The morning brain is highly teachable. Neuroscientists describe the waking brain as being in a state of heightened plasticity. This means emotional pathways are flexible. Stress responses are easily activated. Calm responses are easily reinforced. In simple terms, your brain is more easily trained in the morning than at almost any other time of day. This is why habits practiced in the morning shape mental health more strongly than habits practiced later. And this is also why many people unknowingly train their brains toward anxiety. How most people train their brain for stress. Consider what happens in a typical morning. The alarm goes off, the phone is immediately picked up, notifications appear, messages are read, news headlines are scanned, social media is checked. Within minutes, the brain is exposed to urgency, comparison, information overload, and emotional triggers. Even if nothing bad is happening, the nervous system interprets this as demand. The message the brain receives is simple. Be alert. Be ready. Be tense. Over time, the brain learns a pattern. Waking up equals pressure. This is why many people feel anxious for no clear reason in the morning. It is not because something is wrong with them. It is because their brain has been trained to associate mornings with stress. Why this feels so hard to change. Once a pattern is learned, the brain tries to repeat it automatically. This is efficient from a survival perspective, but damaging for mental health. The brain prefers familiarity, even if that familiarity is uncomfortable. So when someone wakes up and immediately feels restless or anxious, it feels normal. The idea of slowing down feels unnatural. Silence feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels wrong. This is not a character flaw. It is conditioning. The healthy mind does not fight conditioning with force. It gently replaces it with a new pattern. The goal of a healthy morning. A healthy morning does not try to control thoughts. It creates an environment where thoughts naturally calm. Instead of telling the brain to relax, it shows the brain that it is safe. Safety is communicated through signals. Slow movement, quiet presence, gentle breathing, reduced stimulation. When the brain receives these signals, it lowers stress hormones. Cortisol levels stabilize. The sympathetic nervous system quiets. The parasympathetic system activates. This is the system responsible for calm, focus, digestion, and emotional regulation. In other words, mental health begins when the body feels safe. Habit number 1. Delaying mental input. One of the most powerful morning habits for a healthy mind is also one of the simplest. Delay information. This does not mean avoiding responsibility. It means giving the brain time to orient before reacting. Even 5 to 10 minutes without screens can dramatically change emotional tone. In that window, the brain is allowed to wake up gradually. Thoughts slow, breathing steadies. Awareness returns to the body instead of racing outward. This short delay tells the nervous system, nothing urgent is happening right now. And that message changes everything. Why silence is medicine for the morning brain. Silence is not empty. It is restorative. When the brain is not processing language, images, or alerts, it shifts into an internal regulation mode. This is why moments of silence often feel uncomfortable at first. They expose the raw state of the nervous system. But over time, silence becomes grounding. It allows emotional processing to complete rather than being interrupted. A healthy mind is not one that avoids thoughts. It is one that allows thoughts to settle before being stimulated again. The difference between a calm morning and a productive morning. Many people believe they need to feel productive in the morning to feel successful. But productivity without stability creates burnout. A calm morning creates mental capacity. Focus lasts longer. Decisions feel clearer. Emotional reactions are less intense. This is why high-performing minds often protect their mornings, not to do more, but to stabilize first. Mental health is not about doing less. It is about doing from a regulated state. The emotional consequences of ignoring morning regulation. When mornings are rushed and overstimulated, the emotional cost accumulates quietly. Irritability increases. Patience decreases. Focus fragments. Small problems feel overwhelming. By evening, the mind feels exhausted, not from work, but from constant emotional activation. Over time, this pattern contributes to chronic anxiety, emotional numbness, burnout, reduced motivation, difficulty relaxing. The problem is not effort. The problem is timing. The brain was never given a chance to settle. A healthy mind is built before the day begins. Mental resilience is not built in moments of crisis. It is built in moments of calm. The morning is the foundation. Not because it is special, but because it is the moment when the brain is most receptive. A few intentional choices in the morning change how the mind responds all day. Not by force, but by training. What comes next? In the next segment, the focus will shift from removing stimulation to adding gentle regulation. Specifically, how light affects mood and focus. Why simple movement resets emotional balance. How the body teaches the brain to feel grounded. Because a healthy mind does not live only in the head. It lives in the body. And mornings are where that connection begins. Light, movement, and the chemistry of a calm mind. A healthy mind does not wake up all at once. It unfolds. And one of the most overlooked forces shaping that unfolding is the body itself. Most people think mental health lives only in the head, in thoughts, in emotions, in willpower. But the brain does not exist in isolation. It listens constantly to signals from the body. And in the morning, those signals matter more than at almost any other time. Before thoughts stabilize, before attention sharpens, the brain looks to the body for guidance. It asks, without words, are we safe? Are we grounded? Are we ready to engage the world? Two of the strongest answers come from light and movement. Not intense exercise, not rigid routines, just gentle, intentional signals that tell the nervous system how to regulate itself. Why light is the brain's first instruction. Light is not just visual, it is chemical. When natural light enters the eyes, it sends a signal directly to the brain's circadian system, the internal clock that regulates mood, focus, sleep, and emotional balance. This system influences cortisol release, melatonin suppression, alertness, Emotional stability. When the brain receives natural light early in the day, it understands one simple thing: the day has begun safely. This helps synchronize internal rhythms. Without this signal, the brain remains confused. It may feel awake, but not aligned. This misalignment is a quiet contributor to anxiety, low mood, and mental fog. Many people spend their mornings under artificial light or screens. Their brain receives mixed signals. It wakes up, but it doesn't settle. The emotional cost of indoor mornings. When mornings begin indoors, under artificial lighting, the brain misses an important cue. The result is subtle but cumulative. Focus feels harder. Mood feels unstable. Energy fluctuates. This is not because something is wrong. It is because the brain was not properly oriented. Even a few minutes of natural light can correct this. Standing near a window, stepping outside briefly, allowing daylight to reach the eyes naturally. No sunglasses, no phone, just light. This simple act anchors the brain in time. It tells the nervous system that the environment is predictable. Predictability calms the mind. Movement as emotional reset. Just as light orients the brain, movement grounds it. Movement is not about fitness in the morning. It is about regulation. When the body moves gently, the brain receives feedback. We are alive. We are coordinated. We are not frozen. Stillness after sleep is not the same as calm. It can feel heavy, sluggish, disconnected. Gentle movement bridges the gap between rest and engagement. It releases muscle tension accumulated overnight. It improves circulation. It signals safety through physical coordination. This is especially important for emotional regulation. Anxiety is often experienced as trapped energy. Movement gives that energy somewhere to go. Why intensity is not required. Many people avoid morning movement because they imagine it must be intense. They picture workouts, sweat, discomfort. But intensity is not necessary for mental health. In fact, too much intensity early in the morning can increase stress hormones. The goal is gentle activation, stretching, slow walking, simple mobility. These movements calm the nervous system rather than stimulate it excessively. They tell the brain, we are awake, but we are not under threat. This distinction matters. The body trains the brain faster than thoughts. Thoughts can argue. The body cannot. When the body experiences safety, the brain follows. This is why breathing, posture, and movement are so powerful for mental health. They bypass mental resistance. They do not require belief. They simply communicate through sensation. A relaxed posture reduces anxiety signals. A steady breath slows race in thoughts. A gentle stretch releases emotional tension stored in muscles. The brain listens. The connection between movement and focus. Focus is not created by forcing attention. It emerges from regulation. When the nervous system is calm, attention stabilizes naturally. Movement helps regulate the systems responsible for attention. It balances neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine. These chemicals influence motivation, clarity, and sustained focus. This is why people often feel clearer after a walk. Not because they solved a problem, but because their nervous system recalibrated. A healthy mind does not push focus. It allows it. Why these habits feel small but are not light and movement seem insignificant, too simple, too basic. But the brain responds to consistency, not complexity. Small, repeated signals shape neural expectations. Every morning the brain learns, is waking up chaotic or steady? Light and movement quietly answer that question. They create a predictable rhythm, and rhythm calms the mind. Common resistance. Many people feel resistance to slowing down in the morning. They feel pressure to rush, to get started, to be productive. This resistance is learned, not natural. The nervous system prefers gradual transitions. Abrupt shifts increase stress. A healthy morning honors transition, from sleep to wakefulness, from rest to engagement, from inner to outer. The emotional payoff. When light and movement become part of the morning, emotional tone changes. Mornings feel less heavy. Thoughts feel less urgent. The mind feels more present. Over time, this reduces baseline anxiety. It improves emotional resilience. The brain learns that waking up is not an emergency. It is a process. What comes next? In the next segment, attention will turn inward, toward breath, toward the space between thoughts, toward how silence and breathing patterns directly influence emotional stability. Because once the body is oriented and grounded, the mind becomes ready to settle. And settling is where clarity begins. Breath, silence, and the space where the mind heals. After light has oriented the brain and gentle movement has grounded the body, the mind is finally ready for something most people avoid. Stillness. Not the forced kind. Not the uncomfortable, rigid kind. But intentional stillness. The kind that allows the nervous system to settle instead of react. This is where many people unknowingly block their own mental health, because silence feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar often feels unsafe. But the truth is simple. A healthy mind requires moments where nothing is demanded from it. Why the modern mind fears silence. Silence exposes the internal state of the nervous system. When external noise disappears, internal noise becomes noticeable. Thoughts surface. Sensations become clearer. Emotions make themselves known. For a mind that has been trained to stay busy, this can feel uncomfortable. Many people interpret this discomfort as a sign that something is wrong. It isn't. It is a sign that the mind has not been given space to process. Modern life rarely allows emotional completion. Experiences stack on top of each other without resolution. Silence gives the brain a chance to close open loops. This is not philosophical. It is neurological. Breathe as the brain's safety signal. Breathing is not just oxygen exchange, it is communication. Each breath sends information to the brain about safety or threat. Fast, shallow breathing tells the brain, "Be alert. Something may be wrong." Slow, steady breathing tells the brain, "We are safe. There is no immediate danger." The brain believes the breath more than it believes thoughts. This is why telling yourself to calm down rarely works. But changing how you breathe often does. In the morning, breathing patterns are especially influential because the nervous system is still calibrating itself. A few minutes of gentle breathing can change the emotional tone of the entire day. The role of the parasympathetic nervous system. The nervous system has two primary modes. One prepares the body for action and threat. The other prepares it for rest, focus, and recovery. Most people spend their mornings activating the first mode without realizing it. Rushing, checking alerts, reacting to information. Breath is the fastest way to activate the second mode. Slow exhalations signal safety. They reduce heart rate, lower stress hormones, increase emotional regulation. This is not meditation, it is biology. Why you don't need complex breathing techniques. Many people avoid breath work because it seems complicated. Counting, holding, patterns. But complexity is unnecessary. The nervous system responds to simplicity. Longer exhales than inhales. Breathing through the nose, allowing the belly to soften. That is enough. The goal is not performance. The goal is regulation. A healthy mind is not trained through effort. It is trained through consistency. Silence as emotional digestion. Just as the body digests food, the mind digests emotion. But digestion requires time. When silence is avoided, emotional digestion is interrupted. Unprocessed emotions do not disappear. They accumulate. This accumulation often shows up as anxiety without a clear cause, irritability, emotional numbness, difficulty focusing, mental fatigue. Silence allows emotions to complete their cycle, not by analyzing them, but by allowing them to pass without interruption. This is how the mind heals quietly. The difference between stillness and avoidance. Stillness is presence. Avoidance is distraction. Scrolling is not rest. Background noise is not calm. Constant stimulation is not regulation. Stillness means being with experience without trying to change it. This teaches the brain resilience. It learns that sensations can be tolerated, that thoughts do not require immediate response, that emotions rise and fall naturally. This learning reduces fear. Fear thrives on urgency. Stillness removes urgency. Why morning is the best time for this practice. Later in the day, the mind is cluttered. Responsibilities accumulate. Stress compounds. Attention fragments. In the morning, the mind is more open. Emotional noise is present, but not yet amplified. This makes morning stillness more effective than stillness at any other time. A few minutes in the morning often equals much longer periods later in the day. Because the brain is receptive. Common resistance and why it appears. Many people feel resistance when attempting morning silence. They feel restless, bored, impatient. This resistance is not failure. It is withdrawal from stimulation. The brain has become accustomed to constant input. When that input is removed, discomfort arises. But this discomfort passes, and what replaces it is clarity. The long-term effect on mental health. When breath and silence become part of the morning, changes occur gradually. Thoughts slow. Emotional reactions soften. Mental space increases. Over weeks, the baseline emotional state shifts. Anxiety reduces. Focus improves. Resilience strengthens. Not because problems disappear, but because the mind becomes more capable of handling them. This is mental fitness, not through strain, but through regulation. A healthy mind is not a busy mind. A healthy mind is responsive, not reactive. It chooses rather than panics. Breath and silence train that ability. They create space between stimulus and response, and in that space, mental health lives. What comes next? In the next segment, the focus will move from regulation to intentional thought framing. Not positive thinking, not affirmations, but realistic, stabilizing mental direction. Because once the mind is calm, it becomes teachable. And what it is taught in the morning shapes how it interprets the entire day. How the mind learns direction without pressure or positivity. Once the mind has been calmed through breath and silence, something important happens. The noise settles. The nervous system stabilizes. Emotional reactivity softens. And in that calmer state, the mind becomes teachable. This is where many people misunderstand mental health. They assume the goal is to eliminate thoughts, or to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. But a healthy mind is not created through forced positivity. It is created through direction. The brain is constantly interpreting experience. When it is not given direction, it defaults to fear-based scanning. This is not pessimism. It is survival biology. The brain evolved to look for problems first. Morning is when this tendency is strongest, which is why how thoughts are framed in the morning matters deeply. Why positive thinking often fails. Many people try to start their day with affirmations. They repeat phrases. They force optimism. They tell themselves everything will be fine. But the nervous system does not respond to words that feel untrue. When positivity contradicts internal reality, the brain resists. This resistance increases internal tension. The goal of a healthy morning is not to lie to the mind. It is to ground it in realism. A grounded mind feels safe. A forced mind feels pressured. The role of cognitive framing. Cognitive framing is not about changing facts. It is about choosing where attention rests. The mind cannot hold everything at once. It selects. Morning framing gently influences what the mind selects first. Without framing, The mind defaults to what could go wrong, what is unfinished, what feels uncertain. This default creates anxiety before action even begins. Framing does not deny challenges. It contextualizes them. The healthiest morning frame. The most stabilizing mental frame in the morning is simple. Today will unfold step by step. This frame removes urgency. It reminds the brain that the future does not need to be solved immediately. It shifts attention from outcome to process. Process feels manageable. Outcome feels overwhelming. Why the brain needs a mental anchor. Without an anchor, the mind drifts. Drifting often leads to rumination. A mental anchor is not a goal. It is a reference point, something simple and present. Examples include focusing on one task at a time, holding a single intention, returning attention to the body. Anchors stabilize attention. They reduce mental scattering. Intention is not a to-do list. Many people confuse intention with planning. Planning activates pressure. Intention activates orientation. An intention might sound like, move slowly today. Respond, don't react. Stay grounded. These are not tasks. They are directions. The nervous system responds well to direction. It resists demands. The emotional effect of direction. When the mind has direction, uncertainty feels less threatening. Even if challenges arise, they are met with steadiness. This does not remove difficulty. It increases capacity. Capacity is what mental health is built on. Why morning is the ideal time for framing. Later in the day, the mind is reactive. In the morning, it is receptive. This makes morning framing far more effective than reframing later. A few seconds of direction in the morning can prevent hours of emotional reactivity later. How to practice. Framing without effort. Framing does not require sitting still or writing. It can be as simple as a quiet acknowledgement. A sentence repeated once, a reminder held lightly. The key is gentleness. The mind learns through repetition, not force. The long-term impact on mental health over time, intentional framing reshapes mental habits. The mind becomes less reactive, less catastrophizing, more present. Not because life becomes easier, but because interpretation becomes calmer. This is mental resilience, built quietly, morning by morning. Common mistakes to avoid. Turning framing into pressure. Expecting immediate emotional change. Using framing to avoid feelings. Framing supports emotion. It does not suppress it. What comes next? In the next segment, attention will shift to fueling the brain gently. Not diet culture, not restriction, but how hydration and simple nourishment influence mood, focus, and emotional stability. Because the brain is biological, and mental health is physical too. Fueling the brain gently. Why what you consume shapes how you think. A calm and focused mind is not sustained by mindset alone. It is sustained by biology. After the nervous system has been steadied through light, movement, breath, and intentional direction. The brain reaches a critical point in the morning. Nourishment. This is where many people unknowingly disrupt their mental balance. Not through what they eat later in the day, but through how they treat the brain in the first hours after waking. The brain is an energy-hungry organ. Although it represents only a small percentage of body weight, it consumes a significant portion of daily energy. And in the morning, when emotional regulation is still delicate, the brain is especially sensitive to how it is fueled. Mental health does not exist separately from physical input. Thoughts, emotions, and focus are influenced by hydration levels, blood sugar stability, and nutrient availability. This is not about dieting. This is not about control. It is about supporting the brain instead of shocking it. Why the morning brain is vulnerable. When waking from sleep, the body has gone several hours without intake. Hydration is low. Blood sugar is reduced. Stress hormones naturally rise to help wakefulness. This is normal, but without gentle support, this natural stress response can tip into anxiety, irritability, and mental fog. Many people intensify this vulnerability unintentionally. They delay hydration. They rely on caffeine alone. They skip nourishment entirely. The result is a brain that feels alert, but unstable. Alertness without stability feels like anxiety. The role of hydration in emotional regulation. Even mild dehydration affects cognitive function. Focus weakens. Mood becomes more volatile. Mental fatigue increases. In the morning, hydration acts as a grounding signal. It tells the body, resources are available. There is no emergency. This reduces stress signaling to the brain. Hydration does not need to be complicated. Water is enough. Not rushed. Not excessive. Simply present. This small act supports mental clarity far more than most people realize. Caffeine and the nervous system. Caffeine is often treated as a necessity. But from the brain's perspective, caffeine is a stimulant. It increases alertness by blocking fatigue signals, not by creating energy. In a nervous system that is already elevated in the morning, caffeine can amplify anxiety. This does not mean caffeine is harmful. It means timing matters. When caffeine is consumed before hydration or nourishment, it magnifies stress signals. When consumed after grounding the body, its effect is smoother and more supportive. The goal is not elimination. The goal is sequence. Blood sugar and mood stability. The brain relies heavily on glucose, but rapid spikes and crashes disrupt emotional regulation. Skipping nourishment entirely may feel fine initially, until irritability, restlessness, or brain fog appear. This is not weakness, it is chemistry. Gentle nourishment stabilizes blood sugar and reduces emotional reactivity. This does not require a full meal. Even something small and balanced can signal safety to the brain. Why extremes hurt mental health. Many people approach mornings with extremes, either rigid control or complete neglect. Both create stress. A healthy mind thrives on moderation, gentle intake, predictable patterns, no pressure. The brain prefers consistency over intensity. The psychology of nourishment. How nourishment is approached emotionally matters. Eating with urgency creates stress. Skipping with guilt creates stress. Forcing routines creates stress. Mental health improves when nourishment feels neutral, not moral, not emotional, just supportive. The brain does not need perfection. It needs reliability. The long-term effect on focus and emotional energy. When the brain is fueled gently each morning, changes appear gradually. Energy becomes steadier. Focus lasts longer. Emotional reactions soften. This reduces burnout. Not by doing less, but by stabilizing the internal system that handles effort. Why morning nourishment is about respect. Respecting the brain's needs is an act of mental self-care. Not indulgence, not discipline. Respect. This respect communicates safety, and safety is the foundation of a healthy mind. What comes next? In the final segment, attention will turn to integration. How these habits come together. Why consistency matters more than perfection. And how a healthy mind is built quietly, one morning at a time. Because mental health is not achieved. It is maintained. The quiet power of consistency. How a healthy mind is actually built. By the time the morning ends, most people forget what it felt like when it began. They remember tasks. They remember conversations. They remember outcomes. But they rarely remember the state of their mind. And yet, that state quietly shapes everything that follows. A healthy mind is not created in a single moment of clarity. It is not the result of one perfect morning or one inspired decision. It is built through consistency, small, repeated signals that teach the brain how to live. This is where many people misunderstand mental health. They search for breakthroughs. They wait for motivation. They hope for a moment when everything suddenly feels easier. But the mind does not change through intensity. It changes through repetition. Why consistency matters more than perfection. The brain is a pattern-learning organ. It does not respond strongly to occasional effort. It responds to what happens most often. One calm morning will feel good, but many calm mornings will reshape emotional baseline. One regulated breath will soothe the moment, but repeated regulation will retrain the nervous system. This is why perfection is unnecessary and often harmful. Perfection introduces pressure. Pressure activates stress. Stress undermines regulation. A healthy mind grows best in an environment of low pressure and high reliability. How the brain learns safety over time. Safety is not a thought. It is a physiological state. When the brain experiences calm mornings repeatedly, it begins to anticipate calm. Waking up no longer triggers urgency. thoughts no longer rush immediately. The nervous system stops bracing for threat. This shift is subtle. It does not announce itself dramatically, but over weeks and months, it becomes unmistakable. Mornings feel lighter. Focus arrives more easily. Emotional reactions soften. Not because life has changed, but because the internal environment has. Why most people quit too soon. Many people abandon healthy habits because they expect immediate emotional transformation. When that transformation does not happen quickly, they assume the habits are not working. But mental health is not linear. The brain changes gradually, below conscious awareness. Early progress often looks like less intensity, not more happiness. Less anxiety spikes, less emotional volatility, less mental exhaustion. These changes are easy to overlook, but deeply meaningful. The absence of distress is often the first sign of healing. The role of identity in a healthy mind. Over time, consistent mornings do something profound. They change identity. A person stops seeing themselves as anxious, or overwhelmed, or mentally scattered. Instead, they begin to see themselves as someone who starts the day grounded. This identity shift is powerful. Behavior follows identity more reliably than motivation. When someone believes they are a calm person, calm choices feel natural. This is how habits become self-sustaining. Why a healthy mind is not always a happy mind. A healthy mind still experiences sadness, still encounters stress, still feels uncertainty. Mental health does not eliminate emotion. It increases capacity. Capacity to feel without being overwhelmed, capacity to respond instead of react, capacity to rest without guilt. This is why regulated mornings matter. They build capacity before the day demands it. How these habits work together. Each habit in this series supports the others. Light anchors time. Movement grounds the body. Breath regulates emotion. Silence allows processing. Direction stabilizes thought. Nourishment supports chemistry. Together, they create a stable internal environment. No single habit carries the weight. This reduces pressure. Mental health improves when responsibility is distributed, not concentrated. What happens when a morning is missed? A healthy mind does not collapse when a routine is disrupted. Consistency does not mean rigidity. Missing a morning does not undo progress. The brain remembers patterns. What matters is return, not perfection. This flexibility is essential for long-term mental health. A rigid routine becomes another source of stress. A supportive routine remains adaptable. The deepest benefit of a healthy morning. Perhaps the greatest benefit is this: the mind stops feeling like an enemy. Thoughts become information, not threats. Emotions become signals, not problems. The body becomes an ally, not an obstacle. This internal relationship changes everything. Life feels less combative. Decisions feel clearer. Rest feels allowed. This is not dramatic. It is quietly life-changing. The long view. Mental health is not a destination. It is a relationship with the mind that evolves over time. Mornings are where that relationship is shaped, not through effort, not through control, but through care. Care that is repeated. Care that is gentle. Care that is realistic. A final reminder. A healthy mind is not built by fixing yourself. It is built by supporting yourself. By choosing environments that calm rather than overwhelm. By respecting the nervous system instead of fighting it. By allowing the brain to learn safety, slowly. Morning by morning, quietly. When the day begins from a place of steadiness, everything that follows is met with more clarity. Challenges still exist, but they are no longer faced from exhaustion. They are met from balance, and that balance is not luck. It is trained.